Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers. Vicki Ryder and Dusty Miller are joining us to give us a little bit of history about the Raging Grannies and also some sampling of their music. So please join me in welcoming the Raging Grannies.
Good morning, everybody. It's such a delight to be with you. I am calling in from North Carolina, which is my more full-time home when I'm not in Florida. This is the first winter that we have not been in Florida, and I'm missing you all terribly, even those of you that I haven't met yet, because I know that I will be one day. I'm feeling hopeful being able to come down and be with you again. So it's my job this morning to tell you a little bit about who we are, these strange old ladies in their funny hats and shawls and aprons, and how that all came to be. The Raging Grannies didn't set out to be Raging Grannies. It was in the winter of 1986, 1987. Some of you can think back to what that winter was like. The Cold War was winding down, but the threat of nuclear war was still hanging over all of us. Chernobyl happened and brought greater fears of the threat that nuclear weaponry and nuclear energy brings to our planet. Um, there was a hole in the ozone layer, and fears of, especially for those of us in the 80s who were not yet grandmothers, but were soon to be grandmothers. We had fears for our children. And in the midst of all this, up in Victoria, British Columbia, there were a group of older women who would stand down at the harbor every week protesting the presence of United States nuclear submarines in their waters. They feared for the danger of accidents and perhaps intentional use of those weapons. So they would stand on the corner and nobody would listen to them because they were just little old ladies, and little old ladies don't usually get much attention. And so they decided that they were going to have to ramp it up a little bit. And they decided that they were going to join the nuclear emergency response team. And they were going to go down and check to see what the level of radiation was around them. So they took their turkey basters and they went down to the water, and they did a wonderful piece of street theater that attracted a lot of attention. And after that, they realized that they were going to have to do more than just stand with their signs if they were going to make a difference. So they began to do some outrageous things that would get media attention, and it worked. And they added singing to their street theater as a way of bringing the message to the people. And that's how the Raging Grannies got started. The word of what they were doing spread throughout Canada and down into the United States by way of Seattle and Portland. And today, at my latest count, we have 101 gaggles of grannies all over North America, as well as gaggles in Australia and Great Britain, New Zealand, Scotland, and Israel. We're not really sure how many gaggles there are out there because we consider ourselves a disorganization, and there is no process for becoming Raging Grannies. If you think you're a Raging Granny, then you are one. All that it takes to be a Raging Granny is to be a woman of that certain age who brings a sense of humor, a sense of commitment, and a sense of outrage to the work that we do. And as you probably know, we bring our message through our songs. We write our own lyrics. We use old familiar melodies so that we can learn them and sing them quickly. We don't pretend to be performers. We're not entertainers. We are a serious political action movement who happen to use the power of song. And I was just so struck this morning as I was listening to We Shall Overcome, how quickly the tears came and how powerful the song, just the music and the unity and the familiarity brings to our purpose. So I am thrilled as a kid who grew up in the folk music world, who grew up on the records of Pete Seeger and so on, to be able to use my my experience with folk song to bring the words of peace and inclusion and just acceptance of all of us for who we are and what we're capable of doing, and doing it in concert with my sister grannies from all over. I first heard about the grannies was about 2001. I had a friend who was wearing a Raging Grannies t-shirt, kind of like this one that I'm wearing today. And I had just become a grandmother in, let's see, my oldest granddaughter is now 26. So it was around about then that I decided that I needed to become a Raging Granny. And we had heard that in Rochester, New York, where I was living at the time, there the budget cuts were just slashing all of the services to schools, to libraries, and they were going to be closing our central library. And I got some friends together. We put on some hats. I wrote a song about why libraries are important. We went down there and the media picked it up. We were on the first page of the paper, and we just took off from there. The next week, we found ourselves in front of the federal building. This must have been 2002. We were protesting the potential for an entry into a war with Iraq, which of course we were incapable of stopping, but not incapable of protesting all through. One of the things that we did during that time when Hillary Clinton was our senator in New York was to deliver to her bouquets of dead flowers, 254 at first, representing the New York troops who had been killed in Iraq. And we just kept having to gather and deliver more dead flowers as the war went on. I found myself in New Smyrna Beach a couple of winters ago and had the great fortune of running into Dusty and Dorothy and Bobby Goldman and others, and the idea of living through a winter without having Raging Grannies around was just not okay. So we knew that we'd have to start a gaggle there. Just tell you briefly that the gaggles, although we're a disorganization, we do keep in touch with each other through Zoom calls and listservs. And every 2 years, we have what we call an unconvention. And that's when grannies from all over get together. We usually alternate between meeting in Canada and the US. Some of us have border crossing problems, and so we try to alternate the location so that both Canadian and US grands can be there at least half of the time. We have a song site where we post our songs and share them so that all grannies everywhere can use the songs or use them as the base for writing their own. And I'm just thrilled. I'm going to stop. I don't want to take up more time. I know we'll have time for questions when we're all done, but just wanted to let you know that the grannies that you see in New Smyrna Beach and Edgewater and popping up in Daytona Beach or wherever are part of a much larger network of Raging Grannies throughout the world. And we're just very glad to be here with you this morning. I'll stop there and let Dusty take over. And I think we're going to have a song first. This is one that came from a collaboration of grannies.
We're the Raging Grannies, and we're here to take a stand, to keep choice free for women and to keep our families planned. We proclaim our dignity and justice we demand. We are Raging Grannies strong.
Look out, We're women growing bolder. We're gaining strength as we grow older. They can throw us into jail, but by our numbers we'll prevail. We are raging grannies strong.
We're old enough that we remember not so long ago when women needing health care had no decent place to go. Now they want to close our clinics, but we're here to tell them no. We are raging grannies strong.
We voted all our lives, and then not a struggle we have missed. So we've come to march today to say that we will not be dismissed. Our women's rights are threatened, and we're seriously pissed. We're raging grannies strong.
We won't lie down and take it when our rights they try to cut. If they think we'll re-elect them, then they really must be nuts. If we're women on the march and we intend to kick their butts, we're raging grannies strong.
We march today for justice, and it's not just for the sport. We own our bodies, we'll protect the rights for which we fought. The right to step out unafraid, the freedom to abort. We are raging grannies strong.
So we will stand together, young, old, brown, and black and white, the unemployed and union folks, and work with all our might. And we will keep on raging as we fight for women's rights. We are raging grannies strong.
Look out, we're women growing bolder. We're gaining strength as we grow older. They can throw us into jail, but by our numbers we'll prevail. We are raging grannies strong.
Hi, I'm Dusty Miller, and I'm part of the South Central Raging Grannies of Florida. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about how we got started. In January 2019, a friend of mine had told me about a woman named Vicki Ryder who was going to be here in the Volusia County for a few months. And Vicki is kind of the great-grandmother of the Raging Grannies. She's written a lot of songs that all the gaggles across the country and in Canada sing. And so we got together, and she said, I'm happy to help you get a group started down here. And I said, okay. So Dorothy and I invited her over and invited a few of our friends who were, you know, politically like-minded. And we had a meeting in the living room, and Vicki talked about the Raging Grannies. And then we thought, well, let's do it. And then our friend Cindy got a reporter and from the Journal News, and the reporter came and interviewed us, and that was kind of cool. It made us feel like we were really a group. And right around that time, in that January, 2 years ago, the first Women's March happened. So this is all over the country, but there was one here at Daytona. So I think there were 5 or 6 of us who knew South Central Raging Grannies, went up there, and we had our banner and our signs and our hats and our shawls, and so we marched in the Women's March together, and that was really fun. And then some people found out about us from the article, so then we added a few more women. One woman came all the way from DeLand, an older woman in her early 90s, I think. And so then we did, we marched in the Martin Luther King Day walk that happens here in New Smyrna Beach every year. And we met Pastor Dove, one of the pastors from one of the churches on the west side. And at first he was kind of laughing at us group in this march with all of our stuff. But then we had little handouts, so we gave him a handout, and he read about what the Raging Grannies stand for. He said, oh, I'm sorry I laughed. He said, I think a lot of the ladies in my congregation would be really interested in joining with you because they care about social justice too. So he invited us to go to his church, and 2 of us went, and we were already thinking, is there any way we can involve some of the Black women from the communities? That was on our minds, and it's been on our minds quite a while. Meantime, we did, around that time, I think we went to Tallahassee, and just a smaller group of us, I think there were 5, and we lobbied on Earth. It was an Earth-related lobby day at the state capitol, and it was about clean water. So there were a lot of other really interesting groups to be passing by in the capitol. There were youth, various groups, and then there were the cattle ranchers, and they were wearing their big Stetsons, and we were wearing our flowered hats, and they'd doff their Stetson hats to us, and we'd doff our granny hats. So it was a very interesting day. We actually met with a number of lobbyists, and at least one in our group was very well prepared to talk about what we wanted Florida to do to protect the water. And climate has been a big issue for this gaggle. It's been important. It's very important to people in Florida, and you can kind of cross bridges more around that and some of the other issues that we also care about.
So I just wanted to introduce the next song, Cleaning Up the Rivers, was written by a local New Smyrna Beach granny, Joyce Riddell. And she was kind of the driver behind our trip up to Tallahassee. She has such passion and studied and kept up with the different bills that were on the legislators' plates. And so we sang outside, and we got to go in and speak with the legislators. That one picture you saw was there. And so I just wanted to share that whoever makes up the group can bring a passion and write a song, and we'll deliver the message. It's so good to work together on these things. So this next song was written by Joyce.
We've been cleaning up the rivers all the livelong day. We've been cleaning up the rivers, all the plant and grass decay.
Can't you see the silt that's building? Can't you hear the public scorn? Can't you hear the people shouting, from your management this was born?
Officials clean this mess. We've got to clean this mess. So let's clean up this mess that has been made. Officials clean this mess. You've got to clean this mess so our waters can be clean and safe.
You've got to oversee the cleanup. Pollution has got to go. You've got to clean it up ASAP. Our water is so precious, you know.
We mean it.
Fee-fi mismanagement must go. Fee-fi mismanagement must go. Fee-fi, there's a better way to go. Our water is too precious, you know.
We had several rallies around Medicare for all. I think one in DeLand, maybe one in Daytona. We were invited that same year to sing and talk a little bit, but mostly just sing at the Moms Demand Action educational day that they had in New Smyrna Beach. And that group, as you probably know, is all about gun control and so on. So that was powerful for us. And the most memorable for me of all of our gigs that year was when on Earth Day we were invited to sing at the No Name Saloon, which many of you who are local may know about the No Name Saloon, but if anybody's ever watching this who isn't local, it's a biker bar, and a lot of it's outside, and it's very spread out, and we were fairly clueless about it, but we were happy to be invited, and so we had the unique experience of walking up onto this stage that they've built outside, and there we were in our bonnets and our aprons and shawls, and we were at the No Name Saloon, and there was a big sign underneath. It was Bike Week, I think. It said, "Welcome, bikers." So that was pretty funny. And there was a professional mermaid who joined us and was so enamored of our songs about the water that she was sure that she had to have a picture with us, which we got, some great pictures. So those are some of the things we did. And we also began going to the farmer's market now and then in New Smyrna Beach. So we were sort of thinking about different places we could go. And then a bunch of us are snowbirds, so the group got smaller, but continued to do some rallies while we were gone. And then the things I remember from this past year before COVID kind of stopped us, we once again were involved in the Martin Luther King Day event, and this time we were invited to be part of we walked with the march, but then they have an indoor event that's really important and moving, and we were invited to talk about the Raging Grannies and sing. And also we had been meeting in women's living rooms, like Dorothy's and mine, and a few other people who had big enough living rooms. And we thought about, again, the issue of why there are very few women of color in any of the granny gaggles that I'm familiar with, and we wanted to change that. And so we decided we would try meeting at the Babe James Community Center, which is over on the west side in the Black neighborhood, and see if that would be more inviting. Some Black women had spoken to us and said they'd like to join us. So that was sort of beginning. We were starting to have the meetings over there, and we were doing some of the same things that I mentioned already. And then COVID came along, and basically it kind of shut us down in terms of outdoor, face-to-face, getting too close to each other kind of activism. But we have been now starting to do Zooms, and so you're watching this Zoom that we put together for you, and we're hoping to find other ways to stay involved with each other as a gaggle through virtual actions and events like this.
So we have one more song, but before we play it, I just want to say that if any among you are interested in joining us, we will be meeting at least virtually very soon, next week even. So if you want to speak to Barbara or Charlotte and give them your email, they can forward you our meeting Zoom link, and we'll brainstorm together what we want to speak up about and how we might do that. So one more song. This is one that we would have sung at the Babe James Center program following the Martin Luther King March.
Black lives matter, this we know, and racist killings got to go. So we shall stand united, and we shall overcome.
Through our grief and through our tears, we'll face together all our fears, and we shall stand united, and we shall overcome.
In Selma and in Birmingham, in Charleston and throughout the land, we shall stand united, and we shall overcome.
Racist flags and racist guns won't stop the work that must be done. So we shall stand united. We shall overcome.
We raging grannies rise to say the killings got to stop today. We shall stand united and we shall overcome.